When the first dawn appeared over the desert, the scream had already subsided, but the burns from the bruises persisted. The previous night, Mara lay in the dust next to a dried creek, her face covered in tears and mud, and her breath coming in short gasps. She couldn't see straight after being struck so severely by Brent. He had stolen her horse, her boots, her pocketbook, and her last few bucks. Her tongue felt like sandpaper, and she hadn't eaten in 2 days. After spitting next to her, he rode out into the night, chuckling. The sun was ruthless, and the breeze was chilly when morning arrived. Mara crept in the direction of a tiny figure that was partially hidden by sand, an ancient cabin, damaged windows, and a drooping roof. Perhaps it would shield her from the heat or the embarrassment of her continued existence. Even though she had ceased praying hours earlier, she harbored a secret hope that someone would discover her. Her legs shook as she staggered in the door. There was a dusty table, a bed frame without a mattress, and the place smelt of ghosts and dry wood. Her ears ached from the intense silence. She fell to her knees, gripping her stomach tightly as hunger tore it into knots. She let out a few whispers. "I can no longer contain myself. I can't. Please, God." For the first time, she wished she would never wake up again after her head struck the flooring. However, fate had more in store for her. A shadow passed through the doorway later that morning. A tall man with a tattered coat brushed off the dust as he entered. His hands were rough, his eyes heavy from years of silent suffering, and his beard was gray. It had been more than 10 years since Abel Kane had left this cottage. Every board there still recalled his wife's sobs. Each nail contained a fragment of what he had lost. His wife had passed while giving birth. He only came today because he had at last worked up the nerve to unlock the door once more. He discovered a live, broken, and trembling lady inside, not a ghost. He became motionless. Every memory he attempted to suppress was brought back to him by the sight. When Mara saw him, she winced. Her voice broke. "Don't hurt me, please." Abel squatted and spoke softly. "Miss, I'm not here to harm you." Her knees gave out as she attempted to stand. Her injured face was streaming with tears. She said in between tears, "Please assist me. I'll do anything. If you want me, you can have me. Please don't abandon me to perish here." Abel's mouth clenched. He had before witnessed desperation, but never to this extent. After removing the cap and pulling a canteen from his belt, he pressed it to her lips. "Drink first," he instructed. Her chin was dripping with water. She swallowed as if she were starving. After waiting for her to finish, he surveyed the space. He whispered, "This place ain't safe. Shot will sniff you out by night." Mara gave a feeble shake of her head. "I don't give a damn. I got no other place." Abel let out a sigh. He kept looking at the walls where his wife's voice had once been heard. They now reverberated with a stranger's weak murmur. He extended his hand. "Hurry up. You're not going to die here today?" Her entire body shook as she hesitated. "Why are you assisting me?" Although he took a while to respond, sometimes a man's actions speak louder than words. "Because nobody came to her aid when she needed it." Finally, he said. She had no idea who she was, but there was enough anguish in his eyes to drown her. After carefully hoisting her onto his horse, he started the leisurely journey back over the cowboy love stories plain. Once again, the cabin was silent, keeping its secrets to itself. As the wind increased, Mara glanced at the man next to her and pondered whether she had just been spared from certain death, or if she was entering a story from which she had never previously escaped. It was a peaceful and slow ride back. The saddle was where Mara's head was resting. She hardly kept her eyes open. She made a tiny sound every time she bumped into something on the trail. Abel continued to look at the road. Long lines were drawn over the fields by the rising sun as it sliced through the dust. Since the death of his wife, he had not invited anyone back to his property. It was unsettling to imagine another voice in that place, but it was even more unsettling to leave the girl to perish. The sun was cruelly high by the time they arrived at his cabin. The house appeared little in comparison to the barren barn, a few fences and the vacant ground. A windmill that made a squeaky sound each time it rotated. He carried Mara inside after hoisting her from the horse. She appeared heavier than she actually was. Her fever caused her skin to sear fiercely. After placing her on the bed, he filled a tin cup with water. When he said, "Drink a little," she gave a feeble nod. She trembled. After covering her with a blanket, Abel turned to light the stove. The fragrance of smoke and aged pine filled the room. He made a modest, straightforward pot of broth. The cottage was filled with a gentle human scent that had not been present in years. She regarded him with wide, terrified eyes when he offered it to her. "Western stories don't have to pay me," he remarked quietly. Her lips quirked in confusion as she said, "I ain't that kind of man. I simply assumed that people in this place don't work for free." Abel smiled half-tiredly. "When you are able to stand up again, you will work. Maybe fix a few shirts, maybe cook. That's reasonable enough." After giving him a lengthy look, she nodded. "Thank you," she said in a whisper. The wind howled across the plains that night. While repairing an old saddle strap, Abel sat by the fire. He heard steady breathing coming from the bed behind him. He didn't feel entirely alone for the first time in years. At some point after midnight, Mara woke up. She noticed him dozing off with his hat down in the chair beside the door. Her chest hurt because of something about the silent figure. She had never been protected by someone who didn't want anything in return. She was more frightened by it than by the darkness. The air smelt of coffee and rain and Wild West Stories podcast when morning arrived. Abel spoke calmly as he offered her a cup. "Mara, you're secure here. You stay as long as necessary and do your share." With both hands gripping the cup, she nodded. Her gaze fell to the ground. However, something started to stir deep within. It was no longer just terror or hunger. Like the first flame in a frigid room, it was a little, brittle trust. Abel, too, felt that same spark begin to flare within of him, though he chose not to express it. The windmill outside slowed down. Once more, the land was silent. However, silence never lasted long in Texas, since someone else was already returning after learning that Mara was still alive. After 3 days, Mara was able to walk steadily once more. Even though the wounds had healed, she still felt weak. Abel instructed her to accompany him, hitched the wagon, and stated that he needed provisions. "It'll do you good to see folks again," he replied. Even though the idea of meeting strangers made her stomach turn, she nodded. The town was dusty, small, and rife with rumor. There appeared to be a face behind each window, observing, evaluating, and smelling of coffee and dry hay, as well as horses on the board. With the list he gave her in hand, Mara accompanied Abel to the general store. Everything appeared to be quiet for a while. Then, like a serpent, a voice she had assumed she would never hear again slithered through the atmosphere. "Well, look what we got here!" From the other side of the street, Brent scoffed. His eyes were cruel and his smile was crooked. He examined her from head to toe as if she were dirt. "I didn't anticipate you crawling this far, daughter." Mara froze because the agony was remembered by her body before her intellect. Abel turned and saw how pale her face was. Then she came forward, her voice trembling with rage. "My money was stolen by you. You abandoned me to perish." People paused to observe. Brent chuckled. "Cash? I owned that. Wild West romance films. You stole my handbag while I was asleep, sweetie." Before she could even catch her breath, the crowd accepted his claim. The audience murmured. A man spat close to her feet. It didn't take long for a woman's story to unravel in such a setting. Brent approached. "You want to give it back? Or should I take it out of your hide?" He held up his hand. Abel's arm briefly grabbed his wrist before the slap came down. "That's enough," Abel stated in a hefty yet hushed voice. Brent attempted to pull away, but Abel's hold held firm. "You have no evidence, sir." Brent let out a bark. Abel's eyes became stony. "I had enough." And the entire street fell silent for a moment. At the corner, the sheriff showed up. Crunching boots, "Kane let him go. Abel did." Slow and methodical. After glancing at Mara, the sheriff turned to face Brent. "Two Tails." "No evidence." He let out a sigh. "You both calm down. No more altercations in my community." Brent grinned. "Do you hear that? An elderly man. Don't bring your strays home." He laughed as he left, but hate was burning in his eyes. Abel looked across at Mara. "Are you all okay?" She nodded, her lip quivering, but she noticed a change in Abel's expression. He was not upset with himself. He felt bad for her. They returned to the wagon by climbing back in. The trip home seemed to take longer than usual. Though they didn't communicate, they both understood that this was not the end. Some guys, particularly those who are beaten in front of a crowd, are unforgiving. Indeed, that evening, a shadow watched their cabin light flicker in the wind from beyond the fence line. Pour yourself a warm cup of tea if you're still here. Tell me what time it is where you are and where you are listening from. And hit the subscribe button, buddy, if you want to go on these crazy Western nights with me once more. Because Mara and Abel's story is only getting started. That night the wind had been peculiar, too silent. It's too chilly for summer. Abel was the first to sense it. He had that old instinct that trouble was coming his way. He knew one thing because he had seen enough men like Brent. They never give up. Mara was using lamplight to patch a ripped garment inside the cabin. When he heard it, Abel went outside to look at the horses. Footprints, followed by a saddle's gentle brook. Two shadows shifted close to the boundary of the fence. After extinguishing the lamp, he let the darkness to descend. The gleam of steel could be seen in the faint moonlight. One knife followed by another. Brent's tone was harsh and low. "Old man, come out," Abel remarked. "I just want what's mine." Nothing. He carefully moved forward after grabbing the shotgun from the porch. The second man kicked open the gate while the boots remained silent in the dust. "Don't make things difficult. We might allow you to continue breathing if you turn the girl over." The silence was pierced by the words. Mara froze within. The needle caused her hands to shake. She peered through the window and saw Abel standing erect, his rifle leveled. He appeared calm and sturdy against the darkness. Caused her heart to ache. Brent spit out, "Kane, are you going to shoot me?" Over a dishonest thief. Abel's voice remained quiet. "We can tell once you take a step closer." After that, things happened quickly. Brent made a lunge. The moonlight caused the knife to flash. Abel struck Brent in the ribcage with a powerful shotgun swing. He didn't flinch even though the blade cut through his sleeve and pulled blood. The second man shouted as he approached from the side. Abel spun around and struck him across the jaw with the rifle like a club. The man fell, stunned. Brent charged once more. This time, the knife clattered to the ground as Abel grabbed his wrist and twisted violently. With Brent's eyes burning and his breath coming in sharp gasps, Abel snatched a rope from the fence and bound his hands tightly. Neighbors from all across the pitch had come to listen to the noise. There was a shout that the sheriff was on his way. Abel was standing above Brent as he struggled and cursed. Blood was streaming from his arm and his shirt was ripped, yet he spoke steadily. "Bring a coffin the next time you come to pick her up." After many minutes, the sheriff showed up. He observed the witnesses, the knives, and the bruises. Brent cursed the entire time he was being hauled up. The policeman stared at Abel. "Well done for keeping her safe. You should rest your arm, Kane." Only the sound of the windmill could be heard when the crowd dispersed. With her eyes wide and her tears gleaming in the low light, Mara emerged from the doorway. "You could have let them take me," she said. Abel gave a headshake. "It's not my style." She grinned despite her tears. She had overcome her fear of the dark for the first time. However, Abel realized that tranquility in these regions seldom lasted long as dawn slowly appeared on the horizon. And his recent actions tonight would completely alter their relationship. The ranch was once more peaceful in the morning following the altercation. The threat had passed, but the scars from the struggle were still visible on the ground. Abel gazed out at the broad fields while sitting on the porch with a bandage on his arm. After a long night of terror, the air had a fragrance of wet grass and dust. Now that her hands were stable, Mara handed him some coffee. He gave her a quick glance and grinned. "I suppose I messed up the place," she returned his smile. "I assume you did, but once more you came to my rescue." He gave a headshake. "Mara, I didn't save you. You were able to save yourself. I merely offered you an opportunity to get up." As the sun rose higher in the morning, the word continued to haunt her. For the first time since she arrived, she put the cleaned linens on the line, cleaned the porch, and fed the horses. She had a sense of belonging. Abel escorted her back to the old cabin where he had discovered her later that afternoon. The floor was still damaged from time, and the door was still hanging unevenly. His hand brushed the wall as he stood silently. "This was where my wife lived," he whispered quietly. "For years, I was unable to enter this place, but when I saw you that morning, I reasoned that perhaps it was time to stop avoiding ghosts." Tears clouded Mara's eyes. "I believed I was merely attempting to live." She continued, "Turns out I was just looking for a place where someone would see me as more than what I lost." Abel spoke softly as he turned to face her. "All right, you've been spotted. You're at home." Weeks passed. Together they restored the roof of that ancient house, fixed the fences, and established a little vegetable patch. Silence started to give way to laughter. Every wound and every cracked board was incorporated into something new. Abel would occasionally sit at nightfall and watch the fields turn gold in the last of the light. When he saw Mara walking confidently and powerfully through the barn, he would reflect on how odd life was. If you have the guts to stay, you can lose everything and still find something worthwhile. Perhaps that is what this region is trying to teach us. That power isn't always audible. Sometimes it just comes down to making the decision to get back up, believe, and love again. Tell me, friend, from where you're listening this evening. Are you observing the stars from your porch or by a window? Get a cup of tea for yourself. Take a deep breath and recline. Please like this story if it resonated with you. You don't realize how much it matters. In order for us to continue traveling through the Wild West together, one tale at a time, please click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Because there's always a new story to be told out there, beyond the wind and the dust. Additionally, it might be yours.